patch 9.23. Alright, so I haven't seen anything to do with this patch specifically. I only know that the dragons are changing and the alcoves in top and bot lane are appearing. So what do I think of them overall as an initial thing? I like the dragon changes. I think Cloud in solo queue is underrated, but the reason for that is because the power of those dragons isn't explicitly like told to players, I suppose, or communicated. Whereas you see fights over like mountains or fire drakes a lot more often, purely because the power of those dragons is just a lot more explicitly obvious to players. But I actually think that Cloud, if used correctly, is probably like the second most relevant a lot of the time. It obviously changes from compositions, but it's just as powerful as fire drakes in a lot of circumstances. Oceans fall off, and then mountains are the other one, the clear favorites. Like, they're clearly just the best ones. So maybe just an overall balance to the way the dragons work, which obviously they're changing a lot. Then the alcoves, I'm not sure how I feel about them. There could be some cool things. There could be some things that are kind of gimmicky, and they're just sort of putting in a change for the sake of change. But they clearly got a massive patch ahead of us, so let's get into it. Victorious Aatrox looks cool. Alright, let's get to the actual patch. This preseason brings some more game-to-game variety with opportunities for mastery of Summoner's Rift. After the second elemental drink of the game dies, the map will permanently transform into one of 4 elements, each with unique terrain changes that will alter the way you take on team fights, rotation, vision, and objective control. After the second elemental drake. Okay, so I could get 2 oceans and then the things might change to something else. Elemental rifts don't favor a specific team, so games are still in the player's hands regardless of which one takes shape. We also wanted to ensure the rifts feel intuitive even in your first game, so they don't introduce any new mechanics, and terrain changes always occur in the same areas no matter which element spawns. Okay, so the way the transformations work. After the second elemental drake dies and a third is announced. Okay, yeah, so the third drake is what determines what shape the rift will take. Once the map transforms, all future elemental drake spawns will be of that element only. Right, so if I have 2 oceans and then the third is a fire, for example, every single dragon from that point on will be fire. Once the map transforms, yeah. Okay. The terrain changes always occur on the 4 jungle quadrants centered around the buff camps as well as in the dragon pit. Okay. So if you have dragon control on the third dragon spawn, you essentially have a lot of more map control because you can dictate how the vision and stuff will play around. Like how you play around vision and stuff like that. Okay. So like you can aggressively take, let's say, the red buff. You take all this vision a lot more aggressively if you know that you have control of the third dragon and it's a fire one. Okay. So the brush nearest blue and red buff burn away, being the ones back here, right? Oh, this one. Yep. Okay. And new pathways open up through the blue and red buff pits. The entrance to dragon pit widens. Yeah. So there's usually walls here, right? Okay. The mountain. Extra tight spaces given opportunities for big AoE wombos and create some interesting new hiding spots for Fog of War. So 2 new bluffs of rock emerge in each jungle quadrant. Here. Where's the other one? Here? Is that one here? Okay. A rock transformation rises in front of the dragon pit. Yeah, okay. Ocean Rift. Most of the brush in the jungle grows larger and new honey fruit spawns near the buff camps. Water pools into puddles throughout the jungle, which is mostly aesthetic unless you're the Empress of the Elements or running the water walking rune. Okay, so this becomes a river, is that right? Wow, this is a big brush. This is the biggest one by far. Oh, there's a brush in the pit too. Okay. Interesting. And then, yeah, brush here and brush here. Right. So this is going to make the map very dark for lots of, because there's no way you can ward this, this, and this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to commit half your entire team's resources of wards just to see 1/4 of the map. I don't know what all these lines are. Or is that rain? Is it rain? Is that what that is? The cloud. Oops. Air currents flow through the area surrounding blue and red buffs, granting movement speed boosts to everyone inside. Okay. Right. Dragon Pit also becomes a speed boosting wind tunnel. Okay. I guess it depends on how much movement speed, but it seems like it impacts the rift the least. But in saying that, I think because it seems like it impacts the least, people in solo queue will disrespect it the most. And by that I mean you might see a jungler, let's say, doing his his Krugs, and you might be bot lane, and you're instantly going to think, okay, he's going to take, let's say, 10 seconds to finish it, and then it usually takes maybe another 8 seconds to get to bot lane. But with wind, you might find that he gets there in 6, so it throws off a lot of timings and things, and people won't be used to that. New alcoves have been carved into the corners of top and bot lanes, and the bot lane brush now has 3 patches mirroring top lane. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So I remember when they changed top lane to have these 3 sections of brush, people were like, oh, Rengar top's going to be broken, but that was like, what, 5 years ago now. So it's good that it's finally mirrored. I actually like that change, that the rift is actually mirrored on both lanes. As far as the actual alcove itself goes, I feel like this is a little gimmicky, because you can sort of sneak in, because this little bit of brush here exists, you can sneak in without being seen from people in the middle of the lane, and then suddenly you're getting ganked. It feels a little gimmicky, but I mean, you're also sacrificing a lot of space on the opposite side of the lane, I suppose, so I don't know. I'll have to see how it plays out. Oh, another thing too is that if junglers ever want to fight in this area, they are this much further away from anything else on the map. So maybe a slight nerf to the way junglers work as well. New brush has been added by the river entrances in both blue buff quadrants. I feel like this used to be a brush, right? Or, oh no, there used to be more brush around here, because this wall ends like here, and there's a brush here, but it used to end all the way around. I don't know. I feel like this doesn't really matter too much, because a lot of the time on like invades and things, you'll be just sitting in this little spot anyway. So it actually doesn't matter. I think this actually impacts Baron and Dragon fights a bit more than fights around blue buff. Because let's say you have like some carries that are like low on HP trying to escape a fight. You can't just flash over the wall and see them if they're in the brush. So you have to commit a lot harder to catching them. Same thing too, it's a lot safer for you to retreat into your blue buff in these cases. So yeah, I feel like these actually impact team fights in the river more than it impacts fights in the jungle itself. Dragon Souls. Dragon Souls are a new endgame payoff for the team who wins the Elemental Drake game. A powerful reward that's similar to an epic objective. Dragon Souls don't offer the same moment-to-moment strength as Baron or Elder, but they're permanent and an additional bonus on top of the Drake stacks their bearers already earned. The first team to slay 4 elemental dragons gains a dragon soul matching the elemental rift. Okay, so let's continue our example from before. We have 2 oceans, the third is a fire, and we know that all the other drakes after that are going to be fire. So if I have 2 water, 2 fire, then I'll gain a dragon soul matching the elemental rift, which will be a fire soul, an infernal soul. Okay. Elder Dragon begins spawning after one team gains a dragon soul, meaning only one team can have it. Huh? Elder Dragon begins spawning after one team gains the soul. Like elemental Drake buffs, dragon souls are permanent and persist through death. Okay, I get that and I get this. This is worded odd. So does that mean only one team can get Elder? Or, because I assume both teams can get dragon souls. Okay, so Infernal Soul. Every 3 seconds, your next damaging attack or ability on an enemy unit triggers a small explosion, dealing 90 base damage to the target and nearby enemies. Okay, so more general AoE damage. Scaling the heaviest with AD. Okay. After not taking damage for 5 seconds, gain a shield for 225 plus whatever you think you're actually scaling with. Scaling the most with bonus health. This is a big bump up from 0.03. Okay, Ocean Soul. Dealing damage to enemies heals you for 180 and restores 90 mana over 3 seconds. 30 mana a second, that's a lot. Damage to minions or monsters regenerates with 30% effectiveness. Right. Okay. Passively gain 10% increased movement speed. After casting your ultimate, gain an additional 30% movement speed for 3 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. Okay, so clearly the elementals mean a lot more in terms of how you should be playing the rest of the game. What do I think? Your Infernals are clearly very strong in fights, and these will beat out... Hang on, so you can only get 1 soul per game. Is that right? Is that what this is saying? So it's not like you can get an Infernal Soul and a Mountain Soul in the same game. I think this kind of sucks, actually. After casting your ultimate, gain an additional 30% movement speed. Because you have a lot of ultimates that are, like... Take, like, Shen ult, for example. It takes you, like, 3 seconds to complete the cast. So you're not getting any benefit out of this whatsoever. Champion like Malzahar, you want to sit there and just CC someone for 3 seconds. That doesn't matter that you get the movement speed. Lee Sin, doesn't really matter if you get movement speed off of a kick because you're one of the most mobile champs in the game. Kassadin, doesn't matter. TF kind of matters, but not really. Champs where it might matter. I don't know, like lots of... The thing about ultimates is that it actually immobilizes the champion that's using it a lot as well, or the ultimate itself is a high mobility spell. This is kind of odd. Like, if you're Sona and you ult the team, like the enemy team, you don't really care for more movement speed because they're already CC'd. And you're not going to like ult to catch, like you're not going to ult to gain the movement speed to catch people because then you've just used your CC. I'm trying to think of what this might be useful on, like who this might be useful on. Something like Fizz, I suppose. Fizz, Kha'Zix, Rengar, those sorts of champs where you want to like try and start a fight with the ultimates. Who else is there? Alistar maybe. Anivia might be decent. Okay, so I suppose there are some uses. Mundo. I wonder how it interacts with like transformation champs like Elise as well. Interesting. This, I feel like, okay, so it's probably really strong on some champs and just terrible on others. Like Galio. Like you don't really care for it with Galio. Heimerdinger, you care a lot about it, I suppose. Jax, it might be fantastic on. Jhin, it literally you don't use it. Yeah, so I'm not sure how... Like Kindred, I think you actually don't like it on Kindred because you want to stay inside your little bubble, right? If you're ulting, then you're probably low HP, so you're just using it to stay alive. Yeah, so I don't know if you actually care about the Cloud Soul that much on a lot of champions. Even some mobile ones. Like LeBlanc, you don't care for the movement speed after you've ulted someone because they're probably dead, or you're probably trying to double W a wave or CCing someone or something. I suppose the only instance would be like if you've chained someone and you want to rechain them so you can keep up with them, but pretty niche uses there. After not taking damage for 5 seconds, gain a shield. This one might be useful. It's probably pretty good for stalling out games, actually. I think of champions that don't have to interact with others, like your poke mages like Lux, Xerath, Ziggs. You don't actually have to take damage to deal damage a lot of the time, so you end up gaining a lot of bonus HP for nothing. Not taking damage. So like this actually sucks for a champion like Mundo because you're constantly taking damage. Yeah, you actually don't like it that much on tanks. You like it a lot on ranged characters, so I suppose anything that's ranged gets a bit of a buff there. When they get the Mountain Soul, that is. So they just get Like, they just naturally are tankier going into the next fight. Ocean Soul dealing damage heals you. This is whatever, I think, for every champ. I don't think it... Because it has a base heal, and it doesn't actually matter what the scaling is, you're getting this heal, right? So, if I hit something with a Vlad auto, I'm healing. If I hit something with a Kassadin ult, I'm healing. So, like, what you're hitting things with doesn't matter. So it's not like a champion like Ari that has really good wave clear and does like true damage to a wave and stuff like that. Scales insanely well with this. This is just a base heal plus whatever her AP is. And her AD and health or whatever, but yeah. I think champions that might really like this are champions like Jax, because he builds AD, AP, sometimes health to survive fights, and he even has some mana scaling in the form of like a Triforce. Maybe. Kayle, maybe. Some of those hyper carry hybrid characters. As for the Infernal, I think this is sort of in the same level as Ocean, where like every champ benefits about the same. Yeah, it scales the most with AD just though. Like 0.15 isn't much further behind than 0.25 on AD, bonus AD. I guess I'm kind of glad it doesn't scale a whole heap with bonus health, because it would be pretty egregious if you just get the Infernal Soul and build super tanky. You do more damage than if you just built damage. Alright, interesting. But I think the Cloud one has to be the weakest one. Movement speed is insane. Like just gaining the 10% movement speed is an insane trait. But I just don't know if this one really matters after casting your ult. I don't know, we'll see. But I think that this will probably get changed at some point. Okay, so these are what the actual dragons themselves give you. Okay, so Infernals give you 5% instead of 10. So it gives you 5, 10, 15, 20 instead of 10, 17, 24. Hang on, so these... I don't remember reading if it spawns faster. Yeah, I don't think it's mentioned that it spawns faster, but we do get more. We're updating the Rift buffs to be more... You can now get 4 stacks of elements. If the enemy team gets the first 2 or 3 drakes, always different elements, then you get the next 4, which is always the same element. Okay, so fire is a little weaker on its own. Extra damage to objectives was a subtle yet powerful snowballing effect that was often hard to appreciate outside of coordinated play. Yup. We're switching Mountain to be more straightforward effect for all players around. Right. Okay. So Mountain now gives you a lot of tankier stats. 32% armor and magic resist is a lot. But you have to get at least 4 dragons. Okay. We're removing Ocean's mana regen to even out its power out among users regardless of resource type. That gives us room to allow Ocean's healing to continue in combat, which is a buff for any user. So now it does 5, 10, 15, 20% of your missing health regen per 5 period. Wow, that's really strong. Weaker early, obviously. This one's probably... I don't know how to judge this one. based on like its early strength, but clearly the Infernal and Ocean are weaker early. Cloud's movement speed was powerful, but not all that exciting. We're moving the speed boost to Cloud Elemental's Rift, where we can support it with visuals, and adding a different kind of haste to Cloud's buff. Whoa. Okay. 40% ultimate CDR, ignoring the CDR cap. Whoa. Okay, my mind instantly switches to Cassidy. Ignoring the CDR cap? You're just going to play Earth on Cassidy. Wow. Assassins love clowns then. I don't know what else to say. Assassins just love clouds, right? Assassins and engaged champs. So champs like Amumu, Annie, Akali, Ashe, Bard, Echo, Fizz. Ezreal would love it. Okay, this looks really powerful to me. Even at 10%, right? On a champion like Cassidy, you're already getting 40% CDR like 95% of the 95% of the time. So let's say you're at 50% CDR, and then what is his base? What's his base CDR on his ult? I don't know off the top of my head. Two seconds. So you're literally getting an ult every single second. You could get an ult every single second if you built Lichbane and no other CDR, but had 4 dragons. The only thing holding him back at that point would be his animation. Because it's like a half-second animation. So if you had, let's say, 40-80% CDR. Right, that's a lot. Okay. That's all I can think. That's all I'm thinking. I'm going to play some Cassidy later on. Okay, so Drake spawn order has gone from random. The first 3 Drakes are now always 3 unique elements. All subsequent... okay. All subsequent Drakes will be the same element as the third. Five initial, 5 respawn until one team is slain 4. Okay, so that's what it meant by up here. You can only get 1 soul per game. Right, okay, that's interesting. Okay. We're dropping the health of the first 2 dragons. The battle over the Dragon Soul begins heating up after that. So Drakes after the first 2 have more health to widen the opportunity for teams to contest. Okay, so it was 3,500 plus 240 per level. So it's now... Wow, that's a lot of health. Okay. It's about 850 health weaker before the Rift transforms, but it's a lot tankier for the 3rd Drake onwards. Interesting. So, I want to say that early dragons mean a lot less, but at the same time, if you have the only ocean dragon in the game, that will mean a lot when you're getting 5% of your missing health regen in and out of combat, or if you have the only mountain drake, your entire team is 8% tankier. That means a lot. Or if you have the only infernal drake in the game, your team does 5% more damage. So people might devalue early game dragons and think that the dragon souls are the only things that are super important. But I think the first 2 dragons are really important. Really, really important. Because it says the first 3 dragons are now always 3 unique elements, right? So you have 4 elements. You're guaranteed to get 3 of them at the start, right? But if you get, let's say, a fire drake and then a water drake, that obviously means that the third one cannot be one of those 2, which also means that the rift cannot change to be a fire or a water rift. So that means you have a 50-50 chance of getting either a mountain or a cloud rift, which also dictates how you should be playing out the rest of the entire game. So I think that that's extremely interesting from a strategical point of view, because you can commit really hard to making sure you're getting that one dragon. If your team heavily relies on, let's say, health regeneration and the first one is a water drake, then you hard commit for the first one and then you might ignore the cloud one next. Now you have lots of health regen and the third one might be a fire drake. So you have lots of health regen on a rift where everybody's doing lots more damage, and suddenly your health regen means a lot more. So I think the interactions between them is really, really interesting. So I'll be interested to see how solo queue sort of plays out around the early dragons. I'm assuming people, just because like it's a new thing, people will automatically like be drawn to it and start really going for them. But I'll be interested to see if that sort of continues as a trend. Elder Dragon. So it no longer increases the effect of the elemental drakes. The burn damage is much higher. It no longer reveals enemies. Oh, the burn no longer reveals enemies, and taking Elder a second time no longer increases the elemental buff multiplier to 100, or the burn damage. Okay. So it doesn't give you... Okay, so it just doesn't stack with the other things, but what does it do instead? Damaging an enemy... Okay, Elder's new mechanic is an execute. Sharpening its identity as the end game team fighting buff and making its impact much more obvious than the dot. And Drake scaling it used to grant. Damaging an enemy at less than 20% health causes them to die in an Elder immolation after 0.5 seconds. What? Elder immolation can't execute enemies through invulnerability effects like Zhong's Hourglass or undying effects like Kindred's ult. What? Damaging an enemy at less than 20% health causes them to die. Like, you just kill people. It says that you're not going to have people at 19.9% health, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. That's really strong. Unless I have some sort of execution ability, which there is a handful of in the game, but not every champion has it. Like, you're not going to resonating strike people, you're not going to Elise Spider Form Q somebody, when they're at low health all the time because, well, one, the champ's squishy, and two, she's not very good in fights, especially that late into the game. So getting that, like, even if I queued someone at 15% health with an Elise Spider Form Q that late into the game, they may not die anyway. So I think that's quite powerful. It's not, I suppose what they say is true. It's not they all have 20% less HP all of a sudden, but it's strong enough to be highly contestable. Obviously, I mean that's what it's designed to do. It's the end game team fighting buff. The buff duration lasts 3 minutes, and it is lost on death. The first dragon spawn. Wait. In a complete stomp, the earliest Elder can spawn is 26 minutes plus time spent in combat with the drakes. But in a game that's going even or isn't seeing many objectives taken, it's also possible for Elder to never spawn. First, okay, so 6 minutes after one team kills their 4th elemental drake, and it has a 6-minute respawn. Okay, so dragons are 5 minutes, right? It's still... What does it say? Elemental drakes. Where did it say 5 minutes before? Okay, yeah. Drake spawn window. Spawns at 5 minutes and 5 minutes from then on. Okay. So you need 4 to spawn the Elder. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out how they say 26 minutes. But no, this makes sense. Okay. So it spawns anywhere between 26 minutes, assuming it's a complete stomp, and team 1 has 4 dragons at that point, which is highly unlikely because they have to just kill the dragon as it spawns at 5 minutes. Let's say they get 4 dragons, and then let's say the other team gets 4 dragons. No, that can't happen, I see. Because once one team gets 4, the Elder spawns, and that's it. Okay, so let's say one team gets 3. Now it's 21 minutes, and the other team gets 3. That brings us to 26 is the spawn, and 3 after that, so you spawn at 31, 36, 41, so that means the earliest time is 26, and the latest time it could spawn at is what, 46? Because once either team has 3 dragons each, no matter which team gets it, the 4th of that element, the following dragon will be an Elder. So 46. Okay. So you can have some really long games if you have some crazy comeback or something, and then have to wait 20 minutes for another, for like the Elder to spawn. Which I'm not saying will happen or very often. I highly doubt that will. If you're getting 4 drakes by the 20-minute mark, how are you spending another 20 minutes in the game? But with the fact that mountains now give you MR and don't do true damage to objectives, the game gets slowed down quite a bit. So I think Elder Dragon is really interesting. I think what they're doing with dragons is actually really cool. It actually entices you to strategize around, strategize on the fly at that, based on what dragons are spawning, which would be really, really cool to see how teams play around that. And Baron is now 3 minutes instead of 3.5. I always thought 3.5 was a weird length of time for a buff anyway. But 3 minutes makes sense, making everything line up. Okay, so visuals for blue buff, red buff's burn effect, Hand of Baron, and Dragon have all been updated. All monster buffs are now visually cohesive, including the new Dragon Souls. Okay, so this is blue buff, red buff burn, Elder Dragon, Hand of Baron, Dragon Soul. Wow, that looks pretty cool. Okay. Right. Top lane. Before I read this, they need to. I think one of the biggest things they needed to do with top lane is to make it like, because it is like, it's not as bad as what it was, I think, in like season 4 or 5, where it was literally an island you could just ignore, and then you just focus all of your attention down bot lane. You have TPs coming in, and then just helping push the bottom lane through. I think top lane is an island if one of your lanes is behind. Like, it's just, there's so many good champions in topside where they can just 1v2 lanes, or they're tanky enough to like just withstand the damage of the enemy top laner, 1v1 the jungler at the same time, and then just finish off the other top laner. Like, it's absurd how snowbally top lane is, especially with like some poor TPs that you might do, or just because of the sheer length of the or the sheer amount of time you got to walk that entire length to get back to lane. So I think balancing it a little bit so that there is not more comeback mechanics necessarily, but that you're not being put as far behind for losing what other lanes would consider something small. Like if you lose a lane if you lose a wave top lane, and you're deciding to walk back to lane, well, you better have a bloody good reason to do it, because if you do that mid lane, it's like, it's okay, I can play pretty passively for an extra wave to get to my level 6. Whereas topside, you're just going to get all in and crushed as soon as they hit level 6. So yeah, I think making that a little bit less punishing, I suppose. Rift Herald now spawns at 8 minutes instead of 10, and it respawns. Hang on. With the increased importance on Drakes on bottom side, we're spawning Rift Herald a bit earlier and letting her respawn once, so teams don't completely abandon their top laners in favour of bot lane presence. You know, more than they already do. What I said. Okay. So, it spawns earlier and it respawns once 6 minutes after that. It despawns at 19:30 unless you're in combat, unchanged. Okay. Health, so it's squishier earlier, tankier later. Slightly. Much squishier earlier though. Attack speed is lower. It's easier to poke Herald's eye before she spins around. I like this change. Squishier earlier, I don't think this actually matters that much, because you're like, if you hit the eye, it's like what, 1500 damage anyway. The pickup window is changing to half. This is pretty big because of fights that might happen around that side of the map. 1 second channel is very good. It speeds the game up a lot. This actually, in conjunction with the way the mountains are changing, actually matters a lot. Because you're not able to take a mountain dragon then in turn take a Rift Herald easier, which then does more damage to the towers for all the tower gold and stuff. Having to wait 4 seconds for that actually slows you down quite a lot. But whereas now you only have to wait 1 second, but you don't actually do as much damage to the tower. Sort of levels that out a little bit, I think, in terms of like your pacing around the tower objectives. Average level of all 10 champions determined on... the Herald's level is the average of all 10 champions determined on using Eye of the Herald. What? I don't understand what this is telling me. Oh, I see. So the Herald's level dictates how much health it has, and therefore how much damage it does to the tower, because it does a percentage of its max health and sacrifices it for the health of the tower. So, ideally, to get the maximum use out of a Rift Herald, you would actually get it as it spawns at 10 minutes, but then use it as late as possible, because then the average of all 10 champions level in the game would have gone up, and then when you use the Rift Herald, she then is the average of all 10 of those champions. So to make the average higher, you've waited. Now instead, the level of the Rift Herald is dictated when you're picking up the Herald. But when you pick up the Herald, it's still taking into account the average level of all 10 champions in the game. So that's an interesting change for sure. I think it's easy. It's interesting that she's respawning though. I'm not sure how that will work with this. Yeah, see, it's dictated by her health, by her level. So she's slightly squishier. 40% of the current health. Okay. I see. So the idea of Herald now, because she loses a lot more HP when she hits the tower, but she does less damage, the idea for Herald is that you want to send it into a lane, use it, farm it for the gold it will give you off of the tower, back up, concentrate on dragons until the Rift Herald spawns 8 minutes later, get the second one, throw it top lane again, get the gold, and then, because you don't actually care about protecting the Herald as much, you just want to get one charge off, and that's it. Whereas before, you might get one charge off, and then protect it. Try and get a second charge. Like if the tower's low enough and you can try and escort it down the lane a little further. Whereas now you just want one charge, leave. Or one charge if the tower's low, threaten a dive, fight them off the tower or whatever. Whereas now it's just one charge, leave. As soon as, yeah, it's almost like a one-use item that you got to fight for. But there's a total of 2 of them in the game. Okay. Minion XP. We're very lightly adjusting minion XP to slightly equalize the influence top and bot laners have on the game. Solo laners will level about 2% faster from minions, while duo laners or solo laners getting non-stop jungler attention will level about 2% slower. Put another way, every 5 waves adds up to an extra caster minion for solo laners and 1 fewer for bot. Right. I wonder if this changes much in terms of... Wait, every 5 waves adds up to 1 extra caster. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, I wonder if it changes anything to do with like level 3 power spikes. or level 2 power spike bot lane, but it's not that significant of a change. So I think this matters almost it almost does not matter to anything. Until somebody does the math and some sort of this is one of those things where it's like so hard to tell how much 1.6 XP per melee minion matters. Like, what does that mean to anyone? It doesn't mean a whole lot, but it won't mean a whole lot until somebody finds a way to exploit it. That's what this sort of sounds like to me. It's one of those things where like it won't matter until it does, or it'll just fall off to the wayside and it's like, oh, they did that change. So, alright, items by the looks of it. No, turret plating and Dawn shield. What is? Oh, I see. Top lane. Yep. Slightly buffing turret plating durability to prevent group and push blowouts in the early game, especially with the Rift Herald changes in mind. I appreciate that. 35 armor and MR per 3rd, 4th, 5th attacker when a plate is destroyed. Okay, but what if the jungler takes the Rift Herald and comes top? It still has the same MR, right? Still has the same resistances? Per 3rd, 4th, and 5th attacker. Like, it gets really tanky really fast. So this gets 35 armor and MR if, let's say, the support and jungler are top lane. But this gets 70 armor and MR if the mid laner comes as well. Then it gets 105 armor and MR if everybody is in that one lane. I think you just get the Herald and come top though. I don't think this matters that much. Like, this is very easily played around, if I'm understanding that math correctly. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, you just gang top, take the Herald, put the Herald top, because it's squishier and it respawns, so you don't care if you lose one. Like, if I'm Lee Sin, right, and I'm playing against an Elise, let's say I have the Herald control, I take the Herald after I've ganked the top lane. Then I use it top because I have the time to, because it only takes 1 second to use now, and we get some plates. The tower wasn't any tankier. We literally just got that extra gold for it. Now the Elise doesn't care as much because she's going to get the second Herald and do the same to my top laner. So, but the poor counterplay to that would be the Elise to get her mid laner to run up with her, because now they're going to get less damage onto that tower because now it's suddenly a lot tankier. So interesting, but I think good players and teams will be able to play around this pretty easily, as though there's no change at all. Buffing D-Shield's regen to make it stronger option in melee versus range matchups. Okay, so you're buffing it from 30 to 40 health over a shorter period of time, which is good, when damaged by an enemy champion based on missing health. Okay, 66% effective for range users, or when triggered by AoE, dot, or proc effects. What's a proc effect? Is this like a Vayne W? %66 effective when triggered by AoE or dot. So his teammates still just really good into melees, even if they get Doran Shield? Oops. This is obviously stronger overall, but I just wonder, like, why you would do this. Like, take this part out, and it's an amazing item. Just 66% effective for range users. Boom. Okay, you're in a range versus range matchup, but you start a Doran Shield. You're not going to get much use out of it. We'll see how many champions actually take this, but I think this kind of defeats the purpose of buffing it for melees. Okay. We're incentivizing junglers to prioritize farming rather than just fitting camps in between ganks. High camp uptime ensures junglers have consistent access to gold and experience on their side of the map. And the removal of catch-up XP steepens the cost of failed ganks. Since junglers will be able to clear their camps more frequently, we're reducing the gold and experience of full clear grants so they don't take over games. We're also ensuring both sides of the jungle get junglers to level 3 on their first clear. Thank Christ for that. Okay. So you no longer get additional XP if you're behind in levels to the epic monster. The epic monsters still innately have catch-up experience though. First camp bonus XP is buffed. So, okay. Small camp respawn is 2 minutes. If your team had vision of a small camp when it was killed, you'll see a respawn icon on the map 15 seconds before respawn. Okay. Buff camp respawn icons change from grey to yellow 15 seconds before respawn. I actually like this change a lot. 20 seconds seems a bit excessive. What up, Jubes? If you're this matters a lot for people that are paying attention. That's about it. What up, Connor? Krugs give you Ancient Krugs first clear penalty removed. Oh, I see, yeah. The base gold is lower. Okay, so they're nerfing the XP in gold Krugs gives you. Zaith McGee. Merkwolves. Experience is down, gold is down. Why are you giving less experience to wolves? You better give a lot to Gromp. Yeah, you are. Okay. So hang on, you're taking, let's say, so there's 80 XP from Krugs and 20 XP from Raptors. So you're taking 100 XP away from the red side and you're giving 20 to Gromp, and that's it. So how much experience is there on each side? Base experience 135 plus 95 is what, 140, so it's 230 on the blue side. This is still more. Gold on the other hand is what, 120, so it's 205, and this is 175. Red buff, like the red side is still so much more valuable. I don't understand. Gromp is also a lot tankier. Like 300 health is a lot. And this is a lot of gold early game, but I'd rather just have a talisman and take all the multi-unit camps. I'm not sure how much I like this. It will probably benefit heavy farm junglers a lot. champions like a Mumu, for example, can take the Raptors really efficiently. Champions like Kane, champions with lots of AoE and stuff. I might play a bit later. I'm going to go through all the changes first, and then I'll eat, and then I'll play. So yeah, interesting, but I think farm-heavy junglers are going to be on the comeback. But it will be on early game junglers to prove that their ganks are good. Absolutely. Might work out really balanced, actually. Lethality. Though the item system currently has 3 lethality options, AD assassins overwhelmingly favor Duskblade and Yomus and typically skip Edge of Night. Absolutely. This leads to a lot of sameness in terms of how one game feels relative to the next for them. We're adding 2 new options and reworking Edge to give assassin players more ways to adapt their build in each game. Alright, so AD increased, Blackout removed. So everything is unchanged. You're getting 5 more AD, but you're removing the disable passive. Okay, I don't think that actually matters too much, because a lot of the time you would run sweepers on assassins anyway. So like a lot of the time I found myself on Zed still running a sweeper even if I had a Duskblade. So if anything, this is probably doesn't matter that much for the item itself. Yomu's now enables the user to ignore unit collision. That is pretty good. It's very good. Any item that does that for you is insane. The old Phantom Dancer used to do it and people used to just get it for that passive. So the fact that it's an active doesn't actually matter too much, I don't think. Also, this annoys me. You only need 1 apostrophe. Oh no you don't. Never mind. That's actually how it's spelled. Yomu's no apostrophe. Spell Shield now works like Banshees. Health increased, AD and lethality decreased. Cost decreased. Okay, so it's 100 gold cheaper, 5 less AD, 8 less lethality. What? Health, you have a lot more health. Grants a spell shield that blocks the next enemy ability. This shield refreshes after no damage is taken from... I guess like it says, this is literally just an AD Banshees. I suppose you're going to get it in those situations anyway, but 10 lethality instead of 18? Like this says 18, this says 21. It's more than double. If anything, this should be at like 13 or 15 or somewhere in that range, because this passive is still really, really good, but it's not halving my lethality good on a first item. Like that's insane. Sanguine Blade. Alright, so it's 3,000 gold, builds out of a Dirk, Vamp Scepter, and 1,000 gold. That is a pretty... how good is that build path? It's okay. It's not great. 1,000 gold's a lot to just combine the items. Gives you 50 AD though. 10 lethality, okay, so it's the same stats so far as Edge of Night. What does it give you? 15% lifesteal. While near 1 or fewer visible enemy champions, 1 or fewer, gain 8 lethality and 40 to 100% attack speed, decaying over 3 seconds if other enemy champions get too close. So who likes this item? Who likes the lifesteal and attack speed with the lethality? Some Riven's might. Lethality and attack speed. Camille, possibly. Draven. Draven would actually be... Or maybe not as a first item actually, because he's in a duo lane, right? Solo lane Draven. Solo lane Lucian. Who else likes this item? Solo lane Jace. Maybe. I was gonna say Kha'Zix, but he doesn't really enjoy the attack speed that much. Master Yi, possibly. Adds a lot of early game power to him. Pantheon. Okay, so I suppose there's a few champions. Yeah, I don't see heaps. Like, it's not like a Duskblade, right? Where you're going to build it probably on every character that scales with... There's like an AD caster assassin. I don't even know if Zed enjoys it that much. Because like the 10 lethality is a bit of a turn off. You really want this for the lifesteal. Right? Like up here you don't want this for the lethality. You want this for the health and the passive. So who really scales with the lifesteal and attack speed? Not that many. Okay. Umbral Glaive. Serrated Dirk, Longsword, 600. That is a good build path. 12 lethality, I like this item. 10% CDR. Wow, I think this item's insane. 2400. That item's so insane. Honestly, you get Umbral Glaive, Yomu's. And then if you're really far ahead, you get Duskblade. Or you get Duskblade instead of Yomu's, and to continue to snowball, you get Yomu's. But I think these two definitely fall into niche spots still. Edge of Night might fall into that category of, okay, I'll get one more lethality item to finish out the game. Sanguine Blade, not really sure who uses it that much. Umbral Glaive looks insane for the amount of gold. 2400, that's a lot of gold. Like these are all 29, 3000, 2400. Okay. Your next damaging spell no longer deals 40%. I don't think that matters that much. You're pretty much overkilling people with lethality anyway. Support items. Still have 3 tiers, but now upgrade automatically for free as you complete their quests. 400 gold starting item. Each gold earned with tribute or spoils of war to upgrade. Increased stats and 3 ward charges earn gold with tribute or spoils of war to upgrade. Significantly increased stats with 4 total ward charges. Tribute or spoils of war go away. Wow. So you just get the item and then it upgrades as you go along. Farming more than 20 CS per 5 minutes, 3 out of 10 waves, reduces gold from minions by 50%. The penalty increases with further CS to a max of 80% reduction at 50 minions. Is this to avoid the scenario where you get the spell thieves and perma-harass people but are still able to farm? Once the penalty kicks in, your CS gold is reduced to 70 minus the CS within 5 minutes %. Spell Thieves Edgeline. Damaging spells and attacks no longer does all this. Instead, it Damaging spells and attacks against champions or buildings grants 15 gold. Okay, that's nowhere near enough gold to ignore this then. Surely not. So now it gives you 10 health. No longer gives you mana regen. And it only upgrades to this at 500 gold. So you need to proc it how many times? A lot. Interesting. Yeah. So it no longer does all this. No longer gives you 10% CDR, mana regen. Okay. So these give you raw combat stats, more damage, but you're squishier. Like earlier, you're tankier, right? 10 health, 70 health. But you didn't have that at all before. But later on, you're slightly squishier for more damage, but you don't have the mana regen. Spectral Sickle, AD health, gold per 10. AD health, gold per 10. Oh, I see. You have to earn 1,000 gold here for it to upgrade again. So, I see. So it's forcing you to stay aggressive with these items. I like it. I like that you can't get, say, the Black Mist Scythe without having to go through these other two, because getting this late game might actually be broken. If you could just buy it like for 400 gold, but you have to buy this for 400 gold, upgrade it to this, and then upgrade it to this for another 1,000. So I like that. While near, okay, so they're changing the way this works. While nearby an ally, basic attacks execute minions below half their max health and grant your ally any kill gold. These effects recharge every 45 seconds, max of 3 charges. Essentially the same thing, except it doesn't have all this other crummy math around it. It's just, if it's below 50, pop. 30% if you're ranged. Thresh is the only one that sort of cares about that. Gives you less health, gives you AP. Okay, Thresh might actually buy this item now. And then just upgrades, yep. Yeah, so supports will do slightly more damage, but will be squishier overall. With these items, specifically. Oh, there's another line. Okay, so there's a 4th item. So what does this give you? Health, AD. So this gives you 30 health and 3 AD. What does the other one give you? 5 AD and 10 health. Okay. So who uses this? Senna? No, Senna might still use the Spell Thieves, or this one. Who uses this? AD supports. Ah, like your tanks, like Volibear, Braum. Your Shens. Your Pikes might, although I think that he might run the other one with more damage. Okay. Your Jarvans might run this. More health. Your Gallios, yep. Okay. So this has a place. Interesting choices that they have to actually think about though. And it may also change between how like the lane matchups work as well. So no more Ancient Coin Line. Woo! Shirelia's now gives you healing and shielding more. Gives you health regen. No more AP. No more movement speed. 1000 range, 40% movement speed. So they're increasing the range on it. Good. And it's also slightly cheaper with what looks to be a much better. I would rather pay more gold than have a fairy charm in my inventory. So much better item. For what it's used for, it's much better. You'd have champs like Vladimir buying it because it had the AP and he used all the stats on it quite well. And you just don't, I don't think you like items in the game like that. So good changes for Shirelia's. Energized. Damage from energized effects now stack. Rather than choosing the highest damage source, energized charges from moving increased by 20%, charges from attacking reduced by 50%. Energized effects now always work on turrets. So now that they stack, you have the old Shiv fire cannon interaction again. Okay, so the cost is increased. Build path is now BF sword, cloak, Kirchi shard, 400 gold. BF sword, cloak. Okay, so this gives you crit now, obviously. Less attack speed, more energized damage, bigger slow for less time, but it no longer amplifies the others. I like this change in combination with these. It obviously makes a lot of sense. I don't know about the gold increase though. I suppose after buying a BF sword and a cloak and a Kirchi shard, you don't really want to just give it to them for almost free for 300 gold. I wonder if BF sword... How much attack speed does Zeal give you? %, 25% crit. I was thinking if you had Zeal BF sword plus gold. Interesting item. I think they might change this around a little bit because this seems really clunky actually. Why would I ever get the Kirchi shard if I could just farm 400 gold? Or why would I ever get the cloak? I hate buying cloak personally, unless I'm on a champ like Yasuo, where I scale with crit extremely well and efficiently. It's almost never useful to buy. So that's what adds the clunk into there. That's why I want a Zeal instead of these two. But the stats that the big item gives you aren't enough to warrant having a Zeal in here. Like you don't want 3% attack speed from spending another 400 gold. Well, it might. I mean, the gold would change, I suppose, yeah. I don't know. Energized damage is lowered. No longer increases the rate of energized. No longer causes energized effects to work on turrets because that's baseline energized functionality now. Okay. Yep. Makes sense. Energized damage is lowered. More bounces again. Oh, the lightning can't critically strike. That actually kind of sucks for a lot of champs. It's good for Yasuo. That's about it. More gold. More damage. Okay. Cloak is increased. Remove Brawler's Club. RIP. Zeal. 1400 gold. I guess you have to buy cloaks now. Cloak of Agility plus Dagger plus 300. Yikes. Dagger, Zeal, 900. No more Spear of Shojin. This lasted 1 season. Beyond that, we think it leaves little... This item was a problem from the start, honestly. Literally lasted like, what, 1 year? So silly. No, Omrek is gone. Zero Portal's gone. Nice. The penetrating bullets passive on turrets has been renamed to Omwrecker. Dude, just buff Omwrecker. It's such a cool item. You'd never buy it because it was so bad, but it has such a cool, unique use. I personally think they need more items like Omwrecker, but you need them to be good. Like Zero Portal actually had its place as well. Spear was honestly broken on the champions that wanted to use it and useless on others. Items from Nexus Siege, Odyssey, Extraction, Nexus Blitz, Poro King, and Dominion have been removed from the item set editor. Thank God for that. Removed Kleptomancy. Instead, we have Omni Stone. Periodically gain a single use of another random keystone. Once a keystone is rolled, it can't be rolled again until only 3 options are left, at which point the table resets. You won't get the keystone you just used though. After using the last, scaling is weighted towards later levels. Gain a new keystone while out of combat after 40 seconds of not using a keystone. Your current keystone shows up to the right of your health bar. All 10 players can see it. Dark Harvest souls persist after you get a different keystone and affect all your other keystones. Wow. Wow. Honestly, I think this is good on champions like Shyvana, where they can kind of use a handful of different keystones, but they don't really just want to narrow in on one. It might even be good on champions like Victor. He can run like Comet, Airy, he can run Glacial Augment, he can run Electrocute, he can run Fleet Footwork. This might be actually insane on Victor, now I'm thinking about it. He could run Phase Rush, Electrocute. He even procs Aftershock. Like, I might actually try this out on Victor. Conqueror. I'm interested to see what the numbers are on this change. I heard about this, but I wasn't sure what they were. So you no longer convert 8% of your damage against champions to true damage. Instead, at full stacks, Conqueror heals for 15% of post-mitigation damage against champions. So that's after magic resistant armor. You have 5 stacks. So you get 2 per ability hit or melee basic attack. Stack duration is 8 seconds for everyone. Adaptive force per stack is... okay. So this is like Fervor, except not quite as good, but you get some healing out of it. Might be good on a champ like Callista. You get all your stacks quite quickly and you last a long time with them. Even though it's 1 per ranged. 2 per ability. So, what's a melee caster that wants to... something like Yasuo. Yasuo would be really good with this. Who else? Melee casters. Fizz, maybe? It's adaptive damage, it's not AD. So Fizz. Jax would really like this. It gets lots of attack speed and stuff like that. Kayn, maybe? Lee Sin, possibly? Not sure. This looks interesting though. I'll have to see how it plays out. I think it's going to be much like Fervor though. So the flat resistances are halved, but they scale more with your resistances, finally. Damage is going up, but it scales with bonus health. I don't know why they didn't do these changes when they were nerfing it throughout the year. Cooldown is shorter. Aftershocks resistances no longer last for slightly longer than intended. That's annoying. Okay, so Presence of Mind. Now restore 20% of your maximum mana or energy and increase your maximum mana by 100 up to 500 or your maximum energy by 10 up to 50. That's pretty cool. What champions will use that? Shen. Oh, I see. It no longer refunds your ultimate's cooldown though. Okay. So maybe not Shen, maybe like a Kali. I'm trying to think of new champs that wouldn't necessarily use it before. Pike might run it still. You might actually like it even more because it gives them a bigger mana pool. Nimbus Cloak has been updated. So 15 to 35% movement speed for 2.5 seconds depending on the summon. So what? So on Summoner Spellcast you get, so you can flash and get a burst of movement speed. Oh, I see. So on any of these, you get different amounts of movement speed. Interesting. Yeah, pretty interesting changes. Well, like I say, the Dragon Soul is now what Nimbus Cloak wanted to do. So this would be the next spell that they would move, like out of the, like remove out of the game or change really significantly, I think, because this is kind of whatever. I'm not sure. Wait, Senna launched pretty close to balance, and we're waiting to see how she shapes up in the new preseason world before issuing buffs and nerfs. Alternate modes are the exception, since most of our changes won't cross over into other maps, and Senna's definitely showing up too hard there. Yeah. No longer gains double miss stacks on ARAM, Earth, or other variants. Senna no longer converts AP from Spell Thieves into Adaptive Force, since she can just buy Spectral Sickle. I didn't realize she did do that. Is that part of her passive? Twisted Tree Line? I don't play Twisted Tree Line, so I can't say anything. Essence Emporium. The Essence Emporium returns. Ah. Spend all your blue essence, guys. Bug fixes. I'm sure there's heaps more. Skins and chromas. This Thresh one looks fucking dope. Look at that. Looks so cool. And Victorious Aatrox. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Too bad it looks a lot like his Arclight skin, but oh well. Alrighty. Overall, game doesn't actually change that much aside from the dragons, honestly. But they're a big change. So, AD casters and supports are the biggest changes. Overall, I think the game pacing will actually even out a bit. But for now, there's probably going to be a few busted characters, like with all these changes, and especially, I think this item's going to be insane, honestly. Umbral Glaive. And then, obviously, the changes with the Dragon Souls will affect some characters in insane ways, like we spoke about the, like, Cassidon with was it a Cloud Drake soul? Sounds insane. Ignoring the CDR cap, yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Pretty long video there, but massive changes. I'll definitely be continuing to play throughout Season 10. Looking forward to it. If you have any comments, questions, or constructive criticism, feel free to leave them below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you want to see some more content. I'm really going to try and put some time in through 2020 to put some actual content onto YouTube, starting with this longer video. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.